everybody. We are a little late with today's posting, Thursday. We had a couple of technical hitches for which we apologise.
Peter stuffed up.
No, Peter didn't stuff up. No, it's fine. So we're a little bit late. Now, this is the special delivery letter that my dear friend Sue sent me, containing the 26 pages of the Uluru Statement from the Heart, all the bits that we were not meant to see. And just to show you that the world is slowly going crazy, on the front of it here, it talks about the person's name, the country, the state, the address, and then down here it says, traditional place name, if possible. Traditional place name, if possible. That's part of the address? How would you... is that some sort of weird tokenism? And on the back of it, with a little Aboriginal drawing, it says, Australia Post acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which we operate, live and gather as employees. The world is just going woke, isn't it? Amazing stuff. And we recognise their continuing connection to the land, the water and community. We pay respect to elders, past, present and emerging. I guess they rub their hands together and say, well, that's kind of like it covers everything. Anyway, on the show tomorrow, when I have a bit more time, because we're live streaming, 3 hours, jeremycordeaux.com, I will have the opportunity to go through this with you. I hope you enjoyed the Peter Credland piece that we had, and thank you to Sky News for letting us run that. I think she, as I said to you yesterday, belled the cat. I will leave that there. Now, what we said last week, or earlier this week maybe, that we're going to do next week the ordinary post here on Facebook of the Court of Public Opinion from the garage through until Friday, when we'll again have our live streaming show. I've got some interesting guests lined up too, which I'll tell you about tomorrow. Now, if you want us to continue doing this broadcast or posting in Facebook, will you tell me? Because we're thinking that after the end of next week, we'll have a podcast, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the live streaming show, 3 hours on Friday. But if you want us to keep up the Facebook page from the garage, tell me, give me that feedback. We'll look at the dates in a little while, some interesting dates too, I must tell you. For Thursday, yeah. Talking about things Aboriginal, the Aboriginal Heritage Cultural Foundation Act of Western Australia. This is the one that had the farmers up in arms because they couldn't plough a field. They basically had to go and find somebody and get his or her permission to use the land, to farm the land. Well, of course it wasn't workable from the start, but it has now been scrapped. Whether that's a permanent scrapping or not will be interesting to see. I'm not surprised that they got rid of it, because it was a problem for Canberra. I'm not surprised. The implications and ramifications of that act were horrific. But I'm afraid the reason that they dumped it is that Anthony Albanese got on the phone and told the Western Australian Premier to scrap it, as the legislation, well, people would be able to see exactly what a yes vote for the upcoming referendum would mean. Now, I can't prove that. Can't prove it. But I'll bet I'm right. And you know that the legislated voice here in South Australia has been, what was the expression, put on hold because it was confusing people. No, I think it was annoying people and I think it was enlightening too. Anyway, more to come. Speaking of the voice, it's not the voice, it's the invoice, as somebody sent me the other day. I love that. I think that's great. It's not the voice, it's the invoice, because that's what's coming right after it. The ABC, when you look at the coverage, is a disgrace. So one-sided. No attempt to balance the story. Nothing. The date of the referendum, by the way, is tipped to be the 14th of October. Circle that in your diary. All the polls seem to indicate that it won't get up. But until we know for certain, no one can rest easy. This voice is dangerous, and I've said often it's a Trojan horse, the true meaning of which, or contents of which, we will not know about until it's too late. I saw the Prime Minister on the ABC saying, what was it? If we go on doing the same thing, talking about the plight of Aboriginal people, there's no dispute they are in trouble, but we have to argue about why they're in trouble. Yes, his argument was, if we go on doing the same thing, we can't expect a different outcome. Well, what he doesn't tell us is how this voice would produce a different outcome. On the insiders, he listed all of the problems Aboriginal people face, and he could not explain, and indeed wasn't asked, how the voice would fix these things. And he couldn't explain why, as he knew what the problems were, chapter and verse, that he couldn't just get on and fix them. If they were fixable. I don't think they are fixable, because most of those problems, neonatal problems, postnatal problems, health problems generally, education, incarceration, alcoholism, shorter and shorter lifespan, domestic violence, all of these things really, when you look at them, spring from individual choices. This is true. People choose to drink while they're pregnant, sniff petrol. People choose to break the law. They choose not to go to school, or can't or won't send their children to school. They choose to beat up their spouses. All of these personal choices. Now, how anybody could portray these problems as fixable from Canberra, I have no idea. I mean, individuals are about looking after themselves and, where possible, making the right choices. Again, on the insiders, one of the panellists insisted that the people supporting a no vote, of whom I am one, in the referendum, were using the same scare tactics that were used in the land rights debate. Well, that person, young lady, has a very short memory, or she's very ignorant. Mabo and Wick cost the taxpayers a fortune. Millions and millions of dollars. Oh, the lawyers had a picnic. Oh, yeah. But all of that, at our expense, resulted in the handing over of 55% of the land mass of Australia. Where did it go? Well, various tribes and Aboriginal clans, of which there are some 400. Now, does anyone believe that this information, had it been put on the table at the time of the debate, does anyone believe people would have gone along with it? Would we have tolerated, let alone elected, people who supported the forfeiture, the surrender of more than half of mainland Australia to a group of people who contribute 0.4%, you can look it up, 0.4% to Australia's GDP or wealth? Now, I think it's about time we had some truth-telling. Then again, of course, there are some people who can't or won't handle the truth, or prefer to hide it or distort it. Peter Malinauskas is meeting with various people, I'm told, to find some interesting ideas to progress the state. Well, I think those sort of think tank things are good. When I had 5AD and 5DN, we would regularly get interesting people, both in-house and outside, not consultants, you understand, but just good thinking, smart people. And we'd sit around, have a few drinks, and talk about the possibilities. You know, expand the horizon. It's sort of like a think tank thing. But could I, Peter, if you're interested in one really good idea, right here and now, no cost. Oh, well, I guess it might cost you a bit. No, what I'm about to suggest, Mr. Premier, is be the first state in Australia to get rid of payroll tax. Iniquitous, stupid tax. You can't tax people for giving somebody a job. Tax it, you'll get less of it. Subsidise it, you'll get more of it. It's a no-brainer, really. If you're the first state, and I'm not saying that the others wouldn't fall in line, they'd have to. You remember when Queensland got rid of death duties? And people from all over Australia sold up and went straight to Queensland. Joe Bjelke-Petersen, for all his faults, was a smart guy. Now, he gave Queensland a huge, if perhaps temporary advantage there by abolishing death duties, which is a death tax, and all of the other states simply had to fall in line. Now, I'm not saying, Mr. Premier, that you get rid of payroll tax, all the other states won't do the same thing, because if we're the only state in Australia not to have payroll tax, can you imagine the number of firms and people who would stream into South Australia? Thousands. We'd be back on the head office map, which of course is a place we used to lead once upon a time. We could be the Delaware of Australia. Delaware, Pete, you know where Delaware is? Ever been to Delaware?
No, I haven't.
Well, it's a very small place. I think there are 35,000 people, and there are 780,000 corporations registered there. Now, could you perhaps join the dots and maybe imagine why it is the head office capital of America, if not the world? Well, I mean, News Limited, for example, head office here in Adelaide for many, many years. It's head office now in Delaware. I think it might have something to do with tax. I think so. So, Mr. Premier, what I'm saying is, what you lose on the swing, you pick up on the roundabout. But, you know, you'd be the first Premier to actually show common sense. Absolutely. 20% increase in the number of battery fires. Now, that kind of has been swept under the carpet. 125 fires in New South Wales alone, all associated with lithium ion batteries. I think the government perhaps has its ideological head buried in the sand for some strange reason. The 78th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima saw a whole lot of people out on the streets of Adelaide. Well, what did we have to do with it? I suppose we had a bit to do with the bomb, the development of the atomic bomb, going way back. But that demonstration was absolutely stupid, amazingly stupid, people. Because really, if you look at history, if they had not dropped the bomb, and there were 2 bombs dropped on Japan, which ended the war. It took the second one to force the surrender. But if that hadn't happened, the war would have gone on and on and on. There would have been bloody house-to-house fighting. The Japanese wouldn't have given up. Activists don't think. I just think they're anti-social, anti-society, anti-everything, or maybe they just want to tear down the establishment for some reason. Anti-war is fine. I'm all for that. But we don't always start the war. Sometimes it's left to us to finish it. But I would remark again that since 1945, since the end of the Second World War, we have not won a single war. All ends up in armistice and conferences and demilitarized zones, and never really gets it out of the way. Have I got time for one more, Pete?
Yeah.
The Liberals have come up with an interesting idea. I don't know if they've got the personnel, by that I mean the members in the House, to carry the day, let alone the vote. But the idea is a simple one. For kids driving, it's very important to get them off on the right foot, make sure they're driving sensibly and properly. Those habits that you learn in the early days stay with you a long time and can, of course, kill you. But the idea is that when you're on your P plates, you get through that probationary period with no offence recorded. You get your licence, and you do not pay for the first year of that licence. Now, I think that's a good idea. It's the old reward and incentive, as opposed to the fear and force. Reward and incentive will always work better. I'll leave you with some thoughts about the anniversaries today. Lego. Ah, yes. Lego. August 10. 1932. What a fantastic invention that, when you look at the success of the company. The Lego group, founded in Denmark by Ollie Kirk Christensen. The name is a contraction of the Danish words leg, G-O-D-T, leg, G-O-D-T, which means play well in English. Didn't know that. 2017 on this day, 100-year-old fruitcake. I've met a few of those in my time. Now, this is the real thing. By Huntley and Palmer's, deemed to be almost edible after being discovered in a hut used by Captain Scott's expedition in the Antarctica. 100-year-old fruitcake. I wouldn't do that, or indeed have mushrooms that I went out into the field and thought were okay to come back and cook up. No, gotta be a bit careful. Rudolf Diesel, his internal combustion engine, a single 10-foot iron cylinder with a flywheel at its base, ran on its own power for the first time in Germany on this day in 1893. David Frost purchases the exclusive rights to interview the US President Richard Nixon. Tricky Dicky, that was in 1975. On the same day, 1981, Richard Nixon's museum in San Clemente, California, closes. First synthesizes what would later become known as aspirin for his Bayer company. Still used. This was back in 1897 and is regarded these days as being a significant miracle drug. I've heard people describe it as that, and it's made from the bark of a willow tree, quite amazingly. 1869, O.B. Brown patents the moving picture projector. The last British troops leave Hong Kong. They'd been there since 1841, but this is the day in 94 that the British troops left. 1846, US Act of Congress passes, establishing the Smithsonian Institute, now the world's largest museum and research complex. I spent about, a whole day, I think, in the Smithsonian in Washington, and it's a most amazing place. If you're interested in aeroplanes, I'm interested in aeroplanes. They have everything from space shuttles to, bombers and things hanging off the roof. It's amazing, the Smithsonian Institute. I think we might leave it. No, maybe just one more. 1942, General Bernard Montgomery appointed the commander, British 8th Army in North Africa. That was in 42. In 43, Adolf Hitler watches the lynching of Allied pilots. On the same day, 1945, Japan announces a willingness to surrender to the Allies, provided Emperor Hirohito's status remains unchanged. Yes, that was a funny thing that Eisenhower went along with and Montgomery went along with, because it was the one condition of an unconditional surrender that the Emperor stayed in place. Anyway, look forward to talking to you tomorrow. We'll be there from 9 o'clock, live streaming, jeremycordeaux.com. Have I forgotten anything, Pete?
Phone number?
Oh, give me the phone number.
0412.
0412.
Oh, sorry, 0491.
Oh, yeah. 0491.
65.
65.
68.
68. 60. Right. I just got a terrible memory for numbers. I don't know what it is. My dyslexia, ladies and gentlemen. I know you'll forgive me. Believe in yourself. See you tomorrow. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Pete and I will be back to have a bit of fun. Hope you can join us.